The Galactic Empire's fleet had long been the dominant force in the galaxy. For centuries it had swept through star systems, decimating civilizations and crushing any form of resistance. The Empire's warships, colossal in size and nearly impervious to attack, were the epitome of technological superiority. Their energy shields could absorb the most advanced weapons, while their devastating armaments reduced planets to rubble. No one dared challenge their power. But the Empire had made one fatal mistake, underestimating Earth. Earth had never been part of the galactic community, hidden away on the edge of the galaxy. The Empire had barely even considered humanity a threat. Earth's technology, by galactic standards, was primitive. Their military forces consisted of a mix of outdated aircraft and ancient firearms, and their space-faring capabilities were rudimentary at best. The Empire's intelligence on Earth painted a picture of a peaceful, weak species unworthy of any serious consideration. As the Empire's fleet loomed over Earth's atmosphere, the citizens below could do little more than watch in helpless terror. The human governments, in a rare show of unity, scrambled to mount a defense, but they knew they stood no chance against the overwhelming might of the invaders. General Marcus Donovan, a retired military strategist and leader of a covert resistance group, knew better. He had spent years preparing for an event like this. Unlike the governments, he had not wasted time hoping for outside intervention or relying on the defense systems that could never stand against the Empire. Marcus had made it his mission to study the Empire's technology, reverse engineering their weaknesses in secret. What he had discovered was crucial: no system, no matter how advanced, was flawless. The Empire's ships were formidable, yes, but they were not invincible. Marcus had noticed a pattern: their shields, though nearly impenetrable, had one glaring weakness. The energy fields that protected their vessels were highly effective against conventional attacks, but they weren't designed to handle attacks from every possible angle. The Empire had focused so much on direct assaults that they had neglected the idea of an indirect strike, exploiting the shield's blind spots. Marcus had a plan, a bold one, but it was the only hope humanity had left. Working in the shadows, he had assembled a small group of engineers, scientists, and military personnel who had been building a weapon designed to do just that: hit the Empire's fleet where they least expected it. The weapon, though rudimentary by galactic standards, was based on a mix of ancient human technology and newly developed systems designed to manipulate energy fields. It was a hybrid of old and new, using the principles of electromagnetic interference and highly targeted energy pulses. The design was simple but deadly, relying on the element of surprise. The Resistance had worked tirelessly, hiding their developments from the Empire's watchful eyes. It was a race against time, and Marcus knew that if the weapon wasn't ready in time, Earth would fall. When the fleet finally arrived, the invaders seemed to mock Earth's defenses. They took their time descending toward the planet, confident in their technological superiority. The Empire had never faced resistance like this before. The humans, they assumed, would cower in fear, ready to surrender. But the Resistance had other plans. The first shot came without warning. From a hidden underground base, one of the hybrid anti-aircraft weapons fired. It was a single missile, seemingly primitive, but when it struck, the result was nothing short of devastating. The missile hit the flagship of the Empire's fleet, a ship the size of a small moon, and, in a moment of shock, the impossible happened. The missile breached the shield. It wasn't a direct hit. The missile struck at an angle no one had anticipated, using a specific energy pulse that destabilized the shield at its weakest point. The explosion that followed was immense. The flagship, once thought indestructible, was crippled, its massive hull rupturing as internal systems failed. The human Resistance had struck the first blow, and it had taken down the Empire's pride. But this was just the beginning. The blast sent shockwaves through the fleet, forcing the Empire's commanders to scramble. They hadn't expected Earth to have anything that could penetrate their shields, let alone land a hit on their flagship. They had been wrong. On Earth's surface, Marcus watched the battle unfold on his screens, a mix of disbelief and triumph on his face. The first strike was a success, but it wasn't enough. The Empire's fleet, though shaken, was still vast, and they would retaliate with all their might. But Marcus knew something the Empire did not: humanity was not done yet. The initial strike had been a mere test of their capabilities. Now they would go further. The Resistance had more weapons, more tricks up their sleeve, and they would keep fighting until the Empire's arrogance brought it to its knees. The general turned to his team, determination in his eyes. Prepare for the next strike. This war is far from over. As the first strike echoed across space, it was clear that humanity had proven something the Empire had never considered: even the most powerful invaders could be taken down by a species they had thought insignificant. The tables had turned, and the Empire would soon learn that underestimating humanity had been their greatest mistake. The first strike had shocked the Galactic Empire, but it was far from over. The blast from the hybrid anti-aircraft missile had taken down the flagship, an unforeseen blow to the Empire's Invincible fleet. As the enormous warship crumbled, fragments of debris scattered across the sky, but even in this moment of chaos, the Empire was quick to respond. The damage had been significant, but the Empire was not one to fall easily. The arrogance that had brought them to Earth was now fueling their rage. The general, Marcus Donovan, sat in the command center of the Resistance's headquarters, watching the Empire's ships slowly reorient themselves. The flagship, the symbol of their superiority, was gone, but the fleet still held overwhelming strength. He knew that their victory had been a fluke, a lucky shot that had exploited a flaw in the Empire's defenses. The real battle was only beginning. But the Resistance had momentum now, and Marcus wasn't about to let that slip away. He had seen the look in the eyes of the soldiers and the civilians who had come together under his leadership. For the first time, humanity had hope. And it was that hope that would drive them forward. As the Empire began to regroup, Marcus's team had already begun preparations for the next phase of the counterattack. The hybrid weapon had been a success, but it was only the beginning. The Resistance had more hidden assets, and the Empire had no idea what was coming next. The plan was to hit the fleet again, but this time with a larger, more concentrated strike. In the hours that followed, humanity's forces grew bolder. Resistance cells from around the world coordinated their attacks, using their knowledge of Earth's geography to their advantage. The Empire's fleet had expected to invade Earth swiftly and decisively, but now they were faced with an unpredictable enemy who had learned how to strike from unexpected angles. Earth's terrain, cities, and military strongholds became an intricate web of guerrilla tactics, each attack coming from a different direction, confusing the Empire's commanders. The second wave of attacks came at night, when the Empire's fleet was most vulnerable. Earth's Resistance used modified military vehicles, retooled to carry the new anti-aircraft weapons, striking from the shadows. The Empire's ships were massive, their advanced sensors capable of detecting most conventional attacks, but these new weapons were designed to exploit the gaps in their detection systems. Earth's Resistance had found ways to disrupt the Empire's technology, using a combination of electromagnetic pulses and other tech that the Empire had no way of countering. The human-made missiles fired once again, and this time, the damage was more extensive. One of the Empire's mid-tier warships was struck, the missile hitting its weak spot and causing a massive explosion. The crew on board had no time to react as the ship's shields failed and the vessel was torn apart. For the first time, the Empire's commanders began to question the invincibility of their fleet. While the battle raged in space, on the ground, humanity's forces were growing stronger. Resistance fighters, led by military veterans and brilliant tacticians, began to form larger coalitions, pooling resources from across the globe. The early successes had given them the confidence to organize on a more massive scale. They had learned to work together, sharing intelligence and coordinating their strikes with precision. The idea of fighting as individual factions, small and scattered, was quickly replaced by a unified human force that operated as a well-oiled machine. But as the Resistance grew bolder, so did the Empire's resolve. In response to the continued attacks, the Empire began deploying a new weapon, an advanced superweapon designed to counter the human Resistance's ability to disrupt their shields. The superweapon was capable of emitting an energy pulse that could temporarily disable Earth's anti-aircraft missiles, neutralizing the Resistance's advantage. When the Empire deployed this new weapon, Marcus knew the fight was about to get much harder. The Resistance's initial victories had been based on exploiting weaknesses in the Empire's technology, but the superweapon represented a new threat, one that would require everything the Resistance had learned so far to overcome. The fight was no longer just about physical weapons, it was a battle of intelligence and strategy. But Marcus was ready. He had always believed that humans could outthink any foe. While the Empire relied on their superior technology and overwhelming force, humanity had an edge that the Empire could never understand: creativity and adaptability. The general quickly mobilized his forces, organizing an emergency strike team to intercept and disable the superweapon before it could be fully deployed. The plan was risky. They knew that if they failed, the Empire would have the upper hand, and humanity's resistance would be crushed. But Marcus had a hunch. The superweapon, while powerful, had to have a flaw, just like the Empire's ships. And Marcus had learned the Empire's tactics well enough to know that their greatest strength could also be their greatest weakness. The Resistance launched a daring assault, infiltrating a heavily fortified Empire base where the superweapon was stationed. As they approached the target, Marcus's team used every bit of intelligence they had gathered over the past few weeks to exploit the Empire's defenses. They avoided direct confrontation with the superweapon's guards, instead using stealth and subterfuge to plant explosive charges that would disable its power source. The operation was tense, every moment fraught with danger. The Empire's soldiers, well-trained and disciplined, patrolled the area, but they had no idea the humans were right under their noses, silently working to dismantle their weapon. Marcus's team moved quickly, the fate of Earth resting on their shoulders. With seconds to spare, they triggered the explosives, sending a powerful shockwave through the base. The superweapon was disabled, and the Resistance had dealt another blow to the Empire's seemingly invincible arsenal. As the team returned to the safety of their headquarters, Marcus couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The victory was hard-earned, and the road ahead would be even more difficult. But humanity was no longer fighting from a place of desperation. They were fighting with purpose, with the knowledge that they had the power to defeat the Empire, not through sheer force, but through their ingenuity and their ability to adapt. The Empire may have had superior technology, but humanity had proven that their creativity, resilience, and unity could overcome any challenge. The first two strikes were just the beginning, and the battle for Earth had only just begun. The tide of war had shifted, but the Empire was far from defeated. The successful strikes by humanity had been unexpected, and the Empire's commanders were scrambling to maintain their grip on the invasion. But as Earth's resistance grew bolder, so did the Empire's retaliation. They had underestimated human resilience and ingenuity, and now they were desperate to regain control. The superweapon had been their trump card, and with its destruction, the Empire found itself without an immediate answer to the growing threat from Earth. Marcus Donovan, the leader of the human resistance, knew that the next phase of the war would be crucial. The resistance had proven that they could strike at the Empire, but now they needed to go further. The window of opportunity was narrow, and the Empire would soon adapt. This battle would not be won by brute force, but by exploiting the weaknesses the Empire hadn't yet recognized. Marcus had always believed that the strength of humanity lay in its adaptability. While the Empire's military was built for dominance and control, humans had the advantage of being unpredictable. The Resistance had already shown the Empire that Earth could be more than just a defenseless planet. They had shown them that the will to fight was far stronger than the machinery of war. Now, it was time to capitalize on this advantage. The human forces began coordinating their efforts more effectively than ever before. Resistance groups across the globe, once fragmented and scattered, began to form a unified front. Different factions of humanity's military, ranging from traditional armies to insurgent groups, began to pool their resources and knowledge. Marcus was no longer leading a small, underground force, he was now at the helm of a global movement. Earth's scattered forces had become a singular, organized resistance. The strategy was clear: hit the Empire where it hurt the most, and hit hard. The Empire had expected Earth's cities to be vulnerable, but humanity had learned to use the landscape to their advantage. Mountains, forests, and even urban areas became battlegrounds where the Empire's advanced technology was less effective. The terrain itself became a weapon, as resistance fighters used guerrilla tactics to ambush Empire patrols, sabotage supply lines, and strike from impossible angles. But the Empire wasn't going down without a fight. Their ships, though damaged, were still formidable, and their commanders had adapted quickly. The Resistance knew that the Empire would soon deploy even more advanced technology to counter the growing threat. It was only a matter of time before the Empire would unleash new tactics to quell the human uprising. In response, Marcus and his team began to develop a new strategy: asymmetric warfare. The Empire's ships had been designed for direct confrontation, but humanity could not afford to fight on those terms. Instead, they focused on attacks that would frustrate and confuse the Empire, keeping them off balance and forcing them to waste resources on a seemingly endless series of unpredictable strikes. The Empire's commanders, used to overwhelming force and order, were caught in a never-ending cycle of failure. They were responding to human ingenuity, not with the force of their technology, but with the unpredictability of human creativity. Earth's resistance grew stronger with each passing day. The Empire's fleet, though still vast, began to feel the pressure of sustained attacks. Every successful strike, every sabotage mission, and every downed ship sent shockwaves through their command structure. The Resistance wasn't just fighting for survival. They were sending a message: humanity was no longer the helpless prey they had assumed. As the Resistance gained ground, Marcus knew that a final confrontation was inevitable. The Empire would not rest until Earth had been completely subjugated. In the coming weeks, the Resistance ramped up its efforts. They launched attacks on key Empire infrastructure, supply depots, communications hubs, and weapons facilities, hoping to cripple the Empire's ability to respond. The Empire, unable to keep up with the growing insurgency, had to divert its resources from the front lines to address internal threats. They were becoming stretched thin, their focus fractured. The turning point came when humanity launched a coordinated assault on one of the Empire's remaining strongholds, a heavily fortified orbital station that housed some of their most advanced weaponry. The station was crucial to the Empire's control over Earth's orbit, and taking it would cripple their ability to maintain their advantage in space. Marcus had been planning this for weeks. The operation was risky, involving a direct assault on the station, followed by a rapid infiltration and sabotage mission. The goal was simple: disable the station's weapons systems, leaving the Empire with no way to retaliate against Earth's growing resistance. The assault was brutal, and the Resistance fighters fought with everything they had. They stormed the station, using everything from explosive charges to hacked Empire technology to take down the station's defenses. There was no room for hesitation. It was a fight to the death, and the stakes had never been higher. The Empire's forces fought fiercely to retain control, but the Resistance was relentless. Each strike, each victory, only served to fuel the fire of determination in their hearts. In the end, humanity succeeded. The orbital station was destroyed, its weapons systems disabled, and the Empire's grip on Earth's orbit was shattered. The victory was a pivotal moment in the war. The Resistance had dealt a blow that the Empire could not easily recover from. It was clear that the once invincible fleet was no longer unbeatable. But Marcus knew the fight was far from over. The Empire would not surrender without a final, desperate push. They would regroup and strike back with everything they had. The battle for Earth was entering its final stages, and the Resistance had proven time and again that they could face the Empire head-on, but now the stakes had grown even higher. The final showdown was coming, and humanity's will to survive would be tested like never before. As the final pieces of their plan fell into place, Marcus turned to his team. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "We've taken their best shot. Now it's time to finish this." The Resistance was ready. Earth was ready. And the Empire would soon learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was their unbreakable will to fight for their home. The war was far from over, but humanity was no longer fighting as the underdog. They were fighting as a force that would change the galaxy forever. The final showdown was inevitable. Earth had shown that it was not the defenseless, primitive world the Empire had thought it to be. Humanity had fought back with ingenuity, resilience, and unity. But even as the Resistance's victories mounted, Marcus Donovan knew that the Empire was not going to simply concede defeat. The Empire's pride had been wounded, but they would come for Earth with everything they had left. The Galactic Empire was a vast, technologically advanced force, and though the Resistance had made significant strides, the final battle would not be an easy one. The Empire's fleet had suffered considerable damage, but they had more ships, more weapons, and more resources than the Resistance could ever hope to match. Earth's victory was not guaranteed. As the Resistance's final assault plan took shape, Marcus understood that their strategy had to be more than just another raid or sabotage mission. They needed to strike at the heart of the Empire's command structure. The Empire's fleet had been crippled, but the Empire itself remained a powerful force. Marcus knew that to truly end the war, the Resistance had to cripple the Empire's ability to fight back permanently. The plan was simple but dangerous. The Resistance would infiltrate the Empire's central command hub, located on a heavily fortified space station in deep space. This station was the nerve center of the Empire's entire military operation. It controlled the fleet's movements, communications, and the deployment of their superweapons. If the Resistance could disable the station, the Empire's ability to respond to Earth's attacks would be significantly diminished. The mission was fraught with risk. The Empire would know that a strike against the command hub was coming. They would have fortified the station with every available defense. The Resistance would need to deploy their most skilled operatives and their best technology to get inside and disable the station's control systems before it could mount a counterattack. The assault began with a calculated strike against the Empire's remaining warships. The Resistance needed to draw attention away from their true target, and a series of well-executed skirmishes with the Empire's outer fleet served as the perfect diversion. The ships of the Resistance used hit-and-run tactics, exploiting the Empire's overconfidence, and scattered focus to keep their forces engaged while the main team moved in. As the operation progressed, the pressure mounted. The Resistance fighters had to move quickly, knowing that every minute counted. The Empire was not going to stand idle and let the Resistance strike their command hub without responding. Each Resistance soldier knew that this could be their last mission, but they pushed forward with unwavering determination. They were no longer fighting for survival alone, they were fighting for a future. The final moments of the assault were intense. Resistance operatives infiltrated the space station, using stealth and sabotage to disable its external defenses. They planted charges to take down the station's shields, making it vulnerable to a direct strike. The Empire was ready for the attack, but they could not anticipate the Resistance's resourcefulness. They had no idea that the humans would infiltrate their base from within, sabotaging their control systems and rendering their defensive capabilities useless. Marcus, coordinating the operation from Earth's surface, watched with bated breath as his team executed the final stages of the plan. The Empire's fleet had been distracted, and now the Resistance fighters had infiltrated the station's core. As the explosives detonated, the Empire's command hub was thrown into chaos. The central control systems were taken offline, and the station's weapons were disabled. The Resistance had succeeded. The Empire's ability to launch coordinated counterattacks had been shattered. With the command hub disabled, the Empire could no longer direct its fleet effectively. Their forces were scattered, their communications severed. For the first time in the war, the Empire was on the back foot. As the station's systems continued to fail, Marcus knew that this was the moment. The Empire had been brought to its knees. They could no longer rely on their vast fleet or their technological superiority. The war was no longer about raw power. It was about resilience, unity, and the will to fight for survival. The victory was bittersweet. Earth's Resistance had sacrificed countless lives to get to this point, and while the Empire's defeat was a monumental achievement, the war had taken a toll. The Empire would no longer be able to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth, but it would not surrender easily. Marcus knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in the galaxy's history. The Empire would need time to regroup, to lick its wounds, but humanity had shown that it could stand against the most powerful empire in the galaxy. As the last remnants of the Empire's fleet limped away from Earth's orbit, the Resistance breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had done it. They had proven that even the greatest of empires could be toppled by the unyielding will of a species that refused to give up. Humanity had changed the course of the galaxy. The Empire had learned a hard lesson: never underestimate the strength of those who have everything to lose. Earth's victory would echo across the stars, a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the power of unity. For Marcus and the Resistance, this was the beginning of a new era. The war with the Empire was over, but humanity's journey had just begun. The galaxy had been reshaped, and Earth would no longer be a forgotten backwater. The message was clear: humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and no empire, no matter how vast or powerful, would ever dare underestimate them again.